Welcome back, everybody. This is lesson 15 of developing a dynamic website from start to finish. In the last lesson, we worked on the admin panel, and it's starting to take form here. If we take a look here, we've got our first kind of component, or this could even be considered an add-in, even or add-on or extension, even though this is kind of the primary basis of a CMS. Either way, this would be the first component, we'll call it, of the CMS, and that is the page manager. And what we're going to do first is we're going to get a list of the page names here on the left, and we're going to dynamically pull that from the database, and then we'll move on from there. So in Dreamweaver here, or whatever you're using, and I will note that I'm now using Dreamweaver CS6, so things may look just a slight bit different than the last videos. We will be moving into Eclipse at some point, but not yet. So we're still in Dreamweaver now. What I want to do is first just open up the index file. I kind of just do that by habit, just in case we're going to edit something in here. But really right now what we want is we want to go in the content folder and get pages. And remember, we're working in the admin folder. This is not from the front end, so double click on pages. And what we need to do here now is we need to run a query that gets all the pages from the database, or at least the page names, and spit them out here in an unordered list. So what we can do here is we need to first, let's give ourselves some room here between the UL, the UL and the first list item, and make some PHP tags. And I'm going to bump it out a little bit here. And let's run a query. We're going to do this in the same fashion that we normally do it. We'll use the variable Q for the query, and Q equals, and then in double quotes is where we're going to put our query. Let's go ahead and we're going to select all from pages, and we'll just leave it at that right now. We may not need to do anything. We might want to order them. Actually, let's do that. Let's order by name, ascending. So that will sort the results alphabetically, ascending, so from A to Z. So we have our query stored in that variable. Now it's time to actually run the query, and we're going to store that result in a variable we call R. So R equals mysqli underscore query. For those who don't remember, this is the query function. This is going to need the DBC, the database connection variable that we created in the setup file, along with the query itself, so the Q variable. Now I'm going to reference here in functions. If we open up Sandbox, we use this MySQL fetch assoc here. We're going to do the same thing, only this time we're going to do what's called a while loop, and you should be familiar with that if you've done any of the other PHP tutorials that we have. If not, this will be new to you, but should be pretty self-explanatory. So let's go back to our pages. We're going to go ahead and just do if R, and that basically means if R exists, and that means the query ran. Just kind of double checking. It's not totally necessary, but why not? So if the query was successful, meaning it returned a result, then we're going to run this while loop. So while, and then we make some curly brackets there. We need to put our condition in here. What happens while what? What we're going to do here is the same thing we did in Sandbox, and we're going to create a variable, and we'll call this page equals my SQLI fetch assoc and put in the parameters it needs, which is the result. And so just like before, that's going to create a variable, or actually an array called page. And since it's an associative array, not a numeric array, it will make the keys in the array will be the names of the fields in the database. And if you remember, just off the top of my head, we have a name, a title, and a body. We have others, but most importantly, we want the name and title will be important to this. So what this is going to do is, instead of just giving us one record, it's going to go through and spit out every record. And for each record, it's going to do whatever is in this while loop. Or more specifically, whatever is in these curly brackets. So that is where we take what we've done here, this li here, and what we're going to do is just do echo, and we'll put our single quotes in there. I'm just going to copy this first list item here and paste it within those quotes. We're going to take out page name, and what we're going to do is simply concatenate, which if you remember is we break the string, put a period there, and then we need to reference the page title, which would be page, and then the key title, and then another dot to concatenate, and then we start the string over again. So now what this should do is it's going to run this query and grab all the pages and spit out a list item for each page. So we should be able to get rid of these, save this and upload it, and if all is well, we should be able to refresh the page, and then instead of page name, we should see the page title. Sure enough. Maybe page title is not the best for this. Maybe we should use name. So let's flip back to Dreamweaver and take this title here and change it to name. Save and upload. Refresh. There we go. It's not as attractive, but it's a little more what we're looking for. We don't really want the title. The page title was really more of a page heading, so that doesn't really make as much sense here. We can do some things later on down the road to maybe make this look a little better, capitalize the first letter or something like that. But at least we're getting the job done so far. Now the next thing we need to do is we're going to need to be able to click on these and have something happen. Right now it's going to do nothing. We want this to load the record that we click on into here. Whatever page we click on should load the data into here. So the first thing we'll need from that is the page ID. So let's get rid of this pound sign here, and what we can do, we could either type in index, or we could just go ahead and just type in a question mark. And what that does is it's just saying this same page, reload it, but this time we're going to give it some parameters. So let's just say that, and then I'm going to do some shortcutting here and copy this and paste it here, and then we'll just change name to ID. Let's just save and upload that and refresh. And now if you hover over this down at the bottom, you'll see ID equals 1, ID equals 2, 3, or 4. Again, these are sorted by name, not ID numbers, so that's why they're out of order there. Down, or that's why it seems out of order. So we're now sending an ID across. And the way we have this formatted right now, this will work for now. Now what we're going to do is when the page loads, we're going to check to see if there is an ID, if a page has been selected. If there hasn't been a page selected, we're not going to show the form. And we're going to do something here that, I'll be honest, I didn't even know we could do for quite some time into my PHP career, we'll say. But that is, we can actually break our PHP within, let's say, some sort of action going on and throw HTML in there. And here, I'll show you anyway. What we're going to do is we're going to start the if here. So PHP tags. And let's just say if get ID, and then we close the tag there, the PHP tag. Now what I'm going to do for those of you who are having that error that the index doesn't exist, those of you who have are working on a local machine using a local server, a way around that rather than turning off your errors is, instead of checking to see if there's a value, you can do if is set, and that will check to see if the variable even exists before it checks to see if there's a value to it. Now if you see what I've done here, I've got my opening curly bracket here, but we're getting an error here from Dreamweaver, and that's because I've closed the PHP here. What I can do is come down here and open another PHP block here, throw in that closing curly bracket, and boom. Now this is something, like I said, I'll be honest, I didn't even know you could do. I didn't realize it for the longest time, and this has made things so much easier. Instead of having to use PHP to echo all this out within those curly brackets, we now can just, you know, start it here, end it here, and just work within the HTML. And this will actually work. So when I save and upload this, I'm going to go to our page, and I'm going to clear out, or I'm just going to go ahead and click on pages, and there. Since nothing has been selected, it's not showing a form. Now if I click on one of these, what should happen is a form should show up. Now we haven't given that form any information, so it'll still be a blank form because no data has been passed to it. Aha. I'm glad that happened. What happened was, what we did, let me do this again. We've sent an ID to the URL. However, we also need to tell it that we were on the pages. I'm glad that I made that mistake there. So in here in this link on line 18, we also need to say pages, or page equals pages, so that we still reload the page manager, and then send the ID. So page equals pages, the ampersand or and symbol, and then our ID. So let's save that and upload, and click on pages again. Now we should be okay. There you go. So now we're seeing the form, yet nothing's being loaded in there. So now what we're going to do is something similar to what we did in the sandbox. In fact, let's do some shortcuts here, and we pretty much need this chunk here from get page. We want the page information. So let's copy this. So we want the query, the result, and the array. So copy, and what we're going to do is let's go ahead and give ourselves a couple lines here, and this is within the if statement, by the way, just so you know. And let's go ahead and paste that in, maybe tab it out, and what we need to do now is select all from pages where ID equals get ID. We don't need the status here, and we don't need we can say limit 1, it's just a good measure, even though we know there should only be one record with that ID. So now we have this this variable. However, now we can't use page again because we're using that in the when loading the page itself. So let's just call this open, or opened there, so as in the page that we've opened. And so now it's going to create an array just like the other one. And you know what, not to get sidetracked, I apologize. We got away with that up here, and we really shouldn't be doing that. So before we go any further, up here in this while loop, let's call this we'll call this link, and we just need to change the array name here and here. Okay, so hopefully everybody understands why I did that. I don't really want to get into why we were able to get away with it, but let's just keep it at that. So this time we're going to call down here, we're going to call this opened, as in the opened record, or however we want to call it. And we need to add a value parameter to our inputs here. And what we're going to do is simply start another PHP tag, or block, and echo out opened, and we need the key for the title. And now we can do the same thing. We can copy this here, make sure you get all the way, we're going to get this space and go all the way to the double quote. Copy that, and then just right after here, right after name, hit paste, or Control V, change this key to name. And just to be clear, what we're doing is we're loading the value property of a text field is basically what shows up here. What is in here? What is the value? So that's what we're doing here. We're spitting out what was already in the database so that it's loaded in there. Now we do the same thing for the text area. The only difference is we don't need a value, we just need the PHP block. So copy that, and the value of a text area actually is between the two tags. So paste here, change this to body, and save. And let's test this out. Let's see how well we did. So click on pages, click on home. There you go. Now we're getting somewhere. So this is going through and loading from the database the data that's already in the database and spitting it out into our form here. Now, one thing that's very obvious is the fact that we have HTML here. Now, to us developers, this isn't a huge deal. Of course, I wouldn't want to write HTML in here. But ultimately, to our end user, our client, or whoever is going to be using this CMS in the end, we really don't want to. We don't want them messing with HTML. So, what we'll do here soon is there's a we want to use what's called a Wysiwyg Editor. Basically, what you see is what you get editor, and I'm sure you've seen that acronym before. There's a very good one, and the one we're going to use that's free is called Tiny MCE Editor. And what that'll do is attach itself to the text area and turn it into a text editor that'll look more similar to something like Microsoft Word or something like that. Once you see it, and we implement in here, you'll be kind of amazed, because you'll notice that you've used this before. You've seen this before. You wouldn't believe how many websites, even big, huge corporation, big company websites, that have used this free editor. Although I believe they have a commercial license too. It's not, can be completely free, but that's what's going to be next on our list as far as making this look better. But what we need to do is make sure that what is most important before that is that we can actually save what we change. Like right now, we don't even have a save button or a submit button. So let's do that. And to make a submit button, pretty much do the same thing we did above. Let's make a paragraph tag just to give it some buffer. We'll make an input tag. The type is submit. We need to give it a name, even though we're not going to use it. It just needs to have one. It's just the proper format. If you find your form not working, that's one of the things I would look for, is to make sure that there is a name given to the submit button. And the easiest thing to do is just call it submit. We then need to give it a value, and the value of a submit button is the text of the button. So we could just plain old say submit, or let's just say save page, or save changes. That's better. I apologize, those of you following our Facebook page. My hand still has not healed, which is why I keep making typos. So let's go ahead and go back. Let's click on some of these here. There we go. Now we have a submit button that says save changes. Now this isn't going to do anything. Well, it will. What it's going to do is it's going to refresh the page and do absolutely nothing, because we don't have the page isn't set up to insert into or edit or sorry, update the record. And that's what we'll work on in the next video. So what we've done here is we've made our list on the left pull dynamic names from the database for the pages. We've made it so that we can click on one of those and load a form with the data, or at least some of the data from the page. We'll get into adding the status and some other things a little bit later, but for now at least we're showing, you know, what we can do. We have a submit button. We are well on our way to making this thing work, and really having a CMS This is not going to be the final product by any means, but you can get yourself a little excited because once we've made this so you can save changes and add pages, then we have technically built, 100% we've built a CMS. And now our job after that is to clean it up, do some internal things, start working on how we can make it scalable, add those components, the blog and the gallery, things like that. We need to make this thing a product that other people can use, and I need to teach you guys how that works in order for you guys to be able to yourself make add-ons to this and utilize this for your own use. So that's what's coming up next. Thanks everybody.